Chris Messina, who, if you remember the New York Times one-page spread Firefox ad, that's Chris Messina. He's actually a CMU alum, by the way. Chris now works for Google. Why do you think they wanted to hire Chris? David Ricordan, who developed OpenID, works for Facebook. This is a profound battle on the web that is not getting nearly enough attention. But I think at the end of the day, this battle for identity online, I'm not necessarily sure that Google is going to win, but one of these big providers sure has a lot of money and a lot of energy committed to beating the open standards. So where I end up on this is that I really hope, at a minimum, we get good at shifting these information silos from one to another. And I think Google or Facebook or somebody's going to win. I think the best hope that we all have is that the market, because I don't think legislators are going to take care of this, I hope that the market demands that it's easy to move that information from one repository to another. I had some buddies that started a nonprofit called Attention Trust about 3 years ago, Steve Gilmore and Seth Goldstein. That never went anywhere, but they got some money from Pierre to sort of advocate that, and I think that concept shouldn't be dead yet. We really need to make it easy for this information to flow from silo to silo.
Isn't that sort of counterintuitive for the big communities, though, that want to keep people within their own sort of, for lack of a better word, walled garden, if you will, because that's how they collect information. That information might be proprietary. That information might confer them advantage over another. So, the data portability group, open social, that's great for the individual, because now I can take my identity and all of my street creds from one community to another, but do they want to see that happen? Do they want to see that flourish?
Well, so here's the only way I think you end up with market demand. So let me ask a question real quick. So whose most active social network is Facebook? Whose most active social network is Twitter? Whose most active, you don't get to answer more than one. Whose most active social network is LinkedIn? Sorry. Whose?
Well, week employment contract has been extended. That's a good deal, right?
But here's the point. I almost guarantee you that what the social network you raised your hand with wasn't the social network you started with, right? So the one use case that I think, if we're gonna demand this as consumers, the one use case that works is, I don't want to have to go from Facebook to name your next social network and try to bring all my friends along. Because remember how painful that was? Remember what a dreadful experience that is? That's the use case that I think could make identity portable. But
Facebook does not have the incentives to implement that. No.
Well, but they do if the community demands it, right? And I'm not saying that. Look, I'm trying to squint and see optimism. I'm not saying,
That's pretty organic movement.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Let me know when that page is up.
Yeah, thanks.
I might as well throw out that the European Union data privacy regs are just the opposite. They are the ones that say health-related information and other sensitive information cannot be transferred, even for legitimate reasons. And you can't even get a blanket continuing authorization from employees. You have to get on a case-by-case basis. So it slows that whole thing up. And I see it because the human resources departments, the benefits departments call up and they say, you know what, we were just trying to verify and transfer gene from one group plan to another, but because it originates in the UK, I can't send it to the United States, or I violated the laws of the United Kingdom.
So from a vendor's perspective, that's like molasses.
Oh my God, it's incredible. Oh, yeah. We get that. Okay, make it go away. I get those all the time. So just the opposite.
All right.
Okay, there's a question.
Just a continuation of that. One of the points is actually portability that you said, which is one of the most important parts. Second thing is just looking at the future. If say services like Google start monetizing the whole identity that you have on the cloud, they start monetizing it because they are like your personal assistant as of now. They know everything about you. So if such a thing happens in future, what is the corporate responsibility from these companies or the policymakers to come in and put a tap on such a thing?
Well, I mean, they'll deny it, but they're doing it right now.
Yeah, they're already
right?
monetizing it.
I mean, and like here's a perfect example, right? I had to find I had to find a service to do electronic faxes, right? And so I did a search on Google for electronic fax services, like a fax number that goes to your email. For like the next 3 weeks, every AdSense ad I saw was for e-faxes. Now, they've assured me that they don't store that query and take it with me, but there was nothing contextual on the page that could have had to do with e-faxes.
I'm sure it's just coincidence.
It's completely random and coincidence. But you know, I mean, the point is like, they're not. It's not when. It's now. It's happening right now. But I think that the interesting thing is I don't really care about that either, right? Like it's sort of funny to me, but I don't care. I mean, once I found the e-fax service I went with, which was free, then I was kind of done with that game. But I don't. I mean, it's
As long as it's relevant, right?
yeah. Who cares?
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
I think it's the running shoe thing. I think it feels awkward to us right now in the world we're living in right now. But I think in 10 years we'll look back on it and be like, well, that's sort of ironic, but you know, it's fine.
I think Rob's point is relevance. Two things. One is, without monetization, we don't have companies, right? So we all, as organizations, as those of us in sit here work for companies, I get my check because we monetize, right? And I get paid because we have some monetization things in place.
So you're clear. To be clear, you're in favor of LinkedIn monetizing the social network.
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually, I got a lot out of it for free before I paid for it. But anyways, well, the other piece is it's relevant. And it's in the time, you know, 6 months from now, you're still getting those ads. It's like, why am I still getting these, right? But in this period, this, you know, infancy period of that surge, you may not have made a decision, right? And so something happened. You didn't complete a transaction. So you come back, oh, yeah, I got to go do that. That's right. Yeah, I got, you know. But 6 months from now, it's moved on. But you've also, in that time, done other searches that it's going to get replaced.
Sure.
Right? And
Yeah.
so, as providers of information, we're not giving out the personal information, we're just giving out what they did. Right? And so, somebody came here and they looked for this. It wasn't that Tim came here and looked for this, and so now that ad says, hey, Tim, you looked at eFax systems, you should buy from us. It's delivering an ad that your activity did something to trigger this. And so it's not sharing necessarily the private, the personal information, just the activity. And so there's some security levels there. And so that's the other side of the equation, is that without monetization, it all goes away.
Yep.
I've been playing a little bit of devil's advocate here on kind of keeping some of the PII and information, but one of the #1 things that we do in my company is help other companies figure out how to get smarter about the data that they're collecting about the users that come into their communities so they can be better at serving just the right information at just the right point in time. I mean, if you're Dell, it makes a lot of sense to say, hey, if someone's going by and buying a new XP laptop and they've added 2 gigs of memory and they've looked at a bunch of video games or they visited maybe the video game community, wouldn't it be great if we can be really intelligent as part of the checkout process to say, you know, of the based on your profile and based on information you looked at, we actually suggest that you upgrade the machine from 2 gigs of memory to 4 gigs of memory, just because based on what the information that you've contributed, we think that's relevant to you. And oftentimes it would be. And that helps the business complete a sale, it helps the customer be happier, and it works out really well in everyone's favor.
So I mean, so they have I buy the notion that they have the right incentives to use that information for an appropriate amount of time according to your interests. Do they have the right incentives to store that information for an appropriate amount of time? And part of what I heard you saying, right, could we get into a world where the government, you know, that information becomes valuable and it's still there? Is that one of the things you're worried about? Yes.
Well, there was a recent announcement that Microsoft, in terms of the Bing search engine, is not going to keep user data over the course of 6 months.
Cool.
So that's when they're officially going to delete everything.
Yeah, when they get 40% market share.
Yeah,
I'll
exactly.
be very curious.
That was very low. You couldn't really see that.
I used it today. I was the third.
Everybody go to Bing. Let's double their search queries right now. Everybody get on there.
Yeah, wait,